Stuck a pin in your backbone, spoke you down from there. All I ever wanted was to be your spine. Lost your friction and you slid for a mile. Overdone, overdrive, overlive, override. You're not the one who let me down, but thanks for offering. It's not a voice and I'm not around. Thanks for picking it.
Hello and welcome to Swell Season Surf Radio, Art and Design series with Chris and Chris. I am your co-host Tyler Brewer, and I am here with Mr. Christopher Coffin and also Mr. Christopher Ladza. How's your pies, guys?
It's all good, man.
So we have an awesome, you guys did a great interview. You got one of our favorite human beings to come on the show, Mr. Mike Nelson, local legendary surf photographer, owner of Unsound Surf, and just an all-around awesome guy. And I'm super psyched that you guys got that. So, How are we doing?
Pretty good. Pretty good.
It's pretty smart and from no waves, hey?
I kind of knew it was going to be good today, and I was so buried in work, and it was like one of those days you just had to let go, you know?
So for our listeners, we were just talking about how we all, Chris Coffin here knew there was going to be waves and he couldn't get on it. I woke up, I had no clue there were going to be waves, and then I saw waves. Mr. Labsa here, you too. You're all bummed because you didn't even know all day. You went oblivious all day until I just ruined it for you.
You're a loser.
I woke up with the sun, and my daughters and I were talking, and I worked all day long on photographs, and then you just told me it was firing. And I was like, my goodness.
Dude, you're like across the street from right now, aren't you?
I mean, why are we... I'm going to bleep all that out, by the way.
And you could bleep it, but I am bleeping very close to bleeping bleep bleep.
Yeah, I know. You're pretty close.
Oh, man.
It's frustrating.
Yeah. Sorry, I just ruined your perfect day. It was beautiful. My daughter was talking to me. I was having a wonderful day. You just shattered it.
Buried in the basement, retouching. So
it wasn't that good. It wasn't that good. Don't worry about it.
It looked pretty fucking mental, and I believe Chris Gentile from Pilgrim said it was a pretty special day.
That's
like, no.
Jeez, a special.
So, and I'm sure Mike Nelson, our guest, was there catching the shots. So
I'm sure he was.
I'm sure.
So, Mike is a local legend, and you've both known him for a long time. Mr. Coffin, you probably the longest out of all of us, probably.
He's older than me.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was alluding to. But what I'm curious, what did you find out about him that you didn't know during this? Like, what was something that really stood out that really you were like, oh, I was not aware of this?
Mike and I go way back, and we're not like buds. We don't see each other every day, and we never did see each other every day. But like when you grow up surfing in the same locale. And, we talked a lot about the fabric of that area, the Long Beach area, Long Beach, Lido area. And, I would always see him every swell, growing up, for decades. And then, life takes effect and you move and, you have families and, priorities become apparent. And, one of the things I enjoyed talking with Mike about was, the growth of his work, like how I remember being out in the water with him when he had like a 35 millimeter camera in a plastic housing, like a Kodak throwaway. And then we listened to his trajectory of becoming who he is today and all the experiences leading up to this. But then I really liked hearing about like where he is today and like, you know, how all those experiences manifested itself in like some of the interests that he's into now. Like he's shooting architecture, he's doing real estate, and you know, it seems like, you know, what he's doing now on the creative side with like architecture and real estate really informs you know, his surf photography, and surf photography informs the shop, and there's this real synergy amongst the three. And it was kind of nice to hear, like, you know, after, I think Mike's like maybe, I don't think he's 50 yet, but I think he's maybe like 48, 49, but like, you know, he's got enough time on the planet to actually start looking back and being like, you know, how have all these things affected me, and where am I now?
It's a shame, actually, that Surfer Magazine closed in the interim between the interview and now. I'd be curious to hear his thoughts on that, because he had a few cover shots, or he had a cover shot. So,
for sure,
pour one out for Surfer Magazine, by the way.
Isn't that unbelievable? Isn't that?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, when you're like 15 years old, I mean, like I had Surfer magazines all over the place. They were in my lifeguard bag.
Let's be serious. They were in the bathroom. They were in the bathroom.
They were in the bath. They had a couple copies in the bathroom.
Dude, I had the whole like a huge portion of my collection. We had a cupboard right in front of the toilet, you know, door closed, and just, you know, you'd be like, oh, I read all the top layer ones, and you dig down deep, you know, like pants around your ankle, like. what's it? Oh man, 1986.
Yeah.
No way. But
that's a shame.
Yeah, it is, and it's like that was a place that Mike had a pretty stable round of photos for, you know, over 2 decades. He was like the New York guy.
People, you know, there's a lot of people who were there for a very long time, and I think it's interesting to see it evolve, right? Like, so who's now shooting that content? Where's that going? You know,
right? It's all on Instagram, and
yeah,
you
but
know,
there's a bunch of talented guys doing that, and I think they need to like think about how they're positioning themselves in a market where surfer doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, that's the thing. Like a lot of the photographers, the really incredible ones, even during the 90s and 80s and, you know, in the past, you know, they've all kind of evolved and moved on from surfing, some of them, you know.
Like Trevs,
yeah.
DJ Grunts, like all these guys that are like incredible photographers have like moved on to different things. Who'd be another one? Dustin Humphreys was in there for a while.
But it's wild to think that there was a time where there were the surf photographers, that was their life career. That was, they were going to work for, there were a few that were able to just ride the whole wave of just working just for the surf mags and shooting.
I feel like it was like cowboys though. It was like the world of cowboys in the American West was so small.
Yeah.
It's like a short period, and it's kind of like that for surf photographers who are making a living doing it.
It's true. It's true. And Mike has always had to balance that, and opening Unsound Surf was the way to kind of keep the connection going and help, like you said, keep that synergy going, which is good, you know. And it keeps him. And I mean, dude, they discovered Balaram, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, they help nurture that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. No, and I think it's interesting too, you know, with the you know, the closing up shop of Surfer Mag, and you know, seeing so much going on Instagram, you kind of wonder, you know, like where are we in terms of like delivering content and delivering information, and how do photographers get seen and known? Because you know, Surfer Mag was, I mean, there were a lot of photographers out there, but there were very few like getting the notoriety that like a lot of the big surfer photographers got, you know. And you know, Mike was lucky to be part of that, so that's pretty cool.
Are we left with the journal?
Yeah, so far it's the journal, and then the Australian mags, and Acetone, which is you know, Andrew Kidman's kind of thing with like a whole collective, which is pretty freaking awesome. And Dave Dennis, you know Dave Dennis, Chris?
Yeah, for sure.
Davo. But so anyway, I love this interview. You guys, I'm really excited. Thank you so much for going and talking to Mike. What's next for Mike? I mean, is it just to keep the path going where he's at now, you think?
Like after I spoke with him before and spoke with him during, and I like his stoke for what he does is still so apparent.
Yeah.
And if you check out his Instagram, man, it is just so incredible. And like I said, when we were interviewing him, like I if you don't know Mike and you don't know where he's shooting, the stoke is there and the shots are there and his positioning, it's just unbelievable. But I just feel a real connection to it because, like, I feel like I know exactly what angle he's shooting from. I know exactly, like, what jetty he's standing on, what dune he's on, and I just think he's always going to be in the water. He's always going to be doing his thing with Unsound, and, he's a staple to that community, and I think it's always going to endure.
I agree.
Absolutely.
He's been shooting since I was a child, I think. Like, I remember, like, looking up to those pictures on the internet when they first came out and seeing, like, all those folks surfing, and I was like, I want to be those guys. And I became one of those guys, like, down the road. And it was, I don't know. I think Mike is super, super in tune with what's going on. He's definitely going to be out there for a long time, kind of like in the water still, like killing it. So I'm pumped to see what he does.
Mr. Coffin, do you remember the wall at Lido Surf and Sport back in the day?
Oh,
the
yeah.
Photo wall, and that was mostly Mike's stuff, basically.
Yeah. And that was a little bit of nostalgia when we were talking. We were talking about, like, what inspired you, and how did he kind of like build a culture, and Long Beach and Lido has a history, and the Lido Surf and Sport was part of that, and Mike and Dave Wan were part of that, and they took a lot of what they experienced and what they did, and they brought it to Unsound, and Mike's still doing it. He's out there in the water, and he's a staple.
Yeah.
And you know what? I don't get to see him that often, but when I do, I'm really happy. I'm really happy to see him. Like, he's just a good dude.
Awesome. Wow.
It brought up a wave for me that I used to love, and it's been like, I think, a decade since it actually broke, but like Point Lookout. We could talk about it because it doesn't exist.
Biscuits.
Oh.
I remember seeing that, like, in ES7, like, secret spot biscuits, and I was like, it's fucking Malibu.
Yeah, I know that water tower. Yeah. I gotta tell you, I caught my first legit barrel there. My first legit barrel.
For sure.
Yeah. Oh,
it's
man,
a right.
that place.
Was it a right or a left?
A left.
A left. Okay.
It was left.
I got many legit barrels there.
Yeah, it was crazy.
And I think that, like, the whole Lido scene being just like, oh my goodness, how beautiful was that wave for so long? And then, whatever happened. But, like,
I mean, yeah, that was special times.
Yeah.
Well, so who wants to take us out and lead us into the interview?
You.
All right. Okay, well, Chris and Chris, thank you both for lining this up. And to our listeners, enjoy this awesome interview with Mr. Mike Nelson, New York surf photographer, staple of New York surf community, and just an all-around good bloke. Here we go, Mr. Mike Nelson.
Dude, I think the last installment that we did with this artist, Ashley Bickerton, was like right after the hurricane hit, and I had no power in my house. I was stuck on Long Island, in Rockville Center, and my sister